At First Choice Bank, we know you can't always make it before the bank closes. With our integrated teller, you can talk to a live person as late as 7 p.m. on weekdays and noon on Saturdays. It's not just an ATM, it's an ITM. First Choice Bank, your choice for banking.
Out with the old and in with the new. It's time to save big at Room to Room's New Year's sale. Store-wide markdowns 50 to 70% off. No tax. 48-month special financing. It's a new year at Room to Room Furniture in Tupelo. There's no place like home.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 10.
Welcome in here to the Room to Room Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lopon. You're watching Mississippi Live Weather at 10. Some changes in our projections necessitating me kind of joining Gabe tonight this evening as we're kind of going through some last minute analysis here. Things looking a little bit better, but we do expect projections to waffle back and forth, but at least we have a waffle in the right direction for some. More on that here in just a moment. But as we look out and about this evening, here are headlines at this hour. Dense fog advisories have been renewed, a sign that there's still ample moisture out there. But is there going to be enough low-level moisture, low-level instability for the severe thunderstorms Friday? That's one of the real questions. New at 10 tonight, there is a shift in those Friday storm positioning. It is beneficial. We'll show you where it's going and how things are changing coming up here in a couple of minutes. And we're talking the latest on storm timing. That, for many, is still pretty similar. Of course, that's coming up here on Mississippi Live Weather at 10 in a couple of moments. But as we look at the first 12 here, we are still ahead of any of that. 55 at 11. Notice the temperatures actually go up a little bit during the overnight hours. 55, 2 a.m., 56, 5 a.m., 58 as we look toward 8 o'clock in the morning, and then heading near record high by tomorrow in the afternoon. As we look at the latest here, dense fog advisories have been issued for locations, really northern portion of the area. You can see there Chickasaw County, Yalobusha County, as well as Calhoun County and Monroe County northward, and then all of our Alabama counties. That's not to say you won't have some dense fog other locations, but certainly that's where we are seeing it the most at this instant here. Great example of that outside right now in Monroe County in Aberdeen. I mean, aside from my mouse showing up there, not a lot of visibility. The dew point, same as the temperature. Humidity at 100% because of that, and very little wind. Wind kind of an easterly sort of direction. We find ourselves north of that front that is kind of the focal point for where the moisture is kind of held south. More on that here in just a moment. Tupelo, no visibility. The camera's working, promise you, the camera's working. If I think this computer over here, let's double check. Yeah, we'll pull up the Tupelo camera and just kind of prove it's working. We'll go ahead and point it more downish. Well, you can kind of see the gray change, but I'm not seeing anything out of that there. We go check that camera tomorrow morning. Maggie's going to be like, well, hold on a second here. I can't see anything. Well, yeah, there's a little bit of a something out there, but not terribly visible out in the Tupelo area. Again, appreciate Mitchell Cunningham Bowling for sponsoring our Tupelo Tower Cam there. And again, low visibility in Oxford as well, though it's a little bit better as 57 is that temperature as of the 10 o'clock hour. So again, widespread cloud cover out there. The story to a certain extent, but I'll just be honest, the thing that I'm more interested in at this time, and I think has more of an impact and a bearing on our forecast, is this. The dew point, measure of moisture based on the same scales of temperature. We talked about this last night, that this is kind of the critical factor for how this all kind of plays out. What are dew points like? What is moisture like once we get to Friday, and how much moisture is up here? This loop we're looking at here is a few hours long. Let's make this a long one. Let's make it a 12-hour loop here for a moment. We'll see if I can put that into a 12-hour loop. And so you'll notice how, again, our front from today has kind of shoved that moisture southward, but it hasn't completely gotten rid of it. But it's been a pretty substantial shove southward. How much returns? Real question, how many times have I asked how much moisture returns, right? That is the critical factor. That is, some would say, the limiting factor on this. We've really shoved it southward, and some of our evening projections are trying to keep it just a little bit farther south. And as we talked about at 5 and 6 o'clock, you have even 10 or 20 miles, each one of these new model runs that comes out. and that can make a big difference if that pattern stays consistent going forward. So overnight, it's just clouds. There are no issues as far as active weather storms are concerned for tonight. We are ahead of really anything like that. All that active weather back out there on the plains for your Thursday. That's where there is a severe weather threat. Some of these storms, again, some hail. There will be some rotation, so a limited tornado threat for locations that direction. But we're in this zone where we're ahead of that as we go into even midday Thursday. It'll be late tomorrow night before our chances get a little better, but we're waiting again that moisture return, and some of that certainly is going to occur. It will get more humid, it will get more sticky as that moisture comes in. But as you can see here on our hour-by-hour forecast, that's not going to yield any real rain chances of significance on your Thursday here. Got to keep my days of the week straight. We're 67, as you can see, by noon. 72 would put us within a couple of a record high for tomorrow. Within one, actually. 73 is the record on the books for tomorrow. I'm going to have a discussion back and forth with our meteorologist, Gabe Mainers. We're looking at some of the projections here, and in particular, the positioning. That is what has changed in a kind of the consensus of our models. Not all of them agreeing, but more of them kind of showing a little bit of shift. We're talking about that in 60 seconds as Mississippi Live Weather continues here from the Room to Room Weather Center right after this.
As a bankruptcy firm, Mitchell, Cunningham & Bowling realizes many people are worried about their finances. We're here to guide you through the next steps to restart your life with easy video appointments. New clients don't have to leave home to get information about becoming debt-free. Also, convenient in-office appointments are available at the low cost of $340 upfront for a Chapter 13. You can be on your way to being debt-free. Contact Mitchell, Cunningham & Bowling today or visit our website at mcdebtfree.com. We are here to help you.
Frozen pipes can cause serious damage. That's why Absolute Restoration is giving away free faucet covers to our community while supplies last. Installing them is easy. Just slide the foam sleeve over your outdoor faucet and secure it snugly. Also remember to disconnect hoses, open cabinet doors under sinks, and let faucets drip during extreme cold. Call or text to check availability, and from our family to yours, please stay warm and protected.
Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lovehon.
Maybe we should refer to it as the fog center this evening because everything is fogged in. You got the glow, and that's it, showing up in Pontotoc this evening. Thank you so much for sticking with here on Mississippi Live Weather on this Wednesday evening. Humid, foggy, sticky out there in Pontotoc County. Radar. Here's that dense fog advisory, as we mentioned, both Lowndes and Clay counties we were looking at a second ago. Some fog, maybe not quite as completely socked in as locations north, but there's no precipitation, no storm activity on this. We will have storms, lots of them on Mama Justice top of the radar on Friday. But how strong will those be? Obviously, that is the big question, the concern related to this. So let's look at here. Our severe weather risk, as you can see, for Thursday, and this is really early pre-dawn Friday morning, same locations we showed you before. And this is going to be the same graphic we showed you on the positioning here as far as the severe weather risk area is concerned for your Friday. But we do feel kind of a higher kind of a higher concentration here on the positioning where we talked about before, kind of that shift southward. We think something that is kind of continuing on a number of our different projections. We'll show those to you over the next couple of minutes here as well. So looking here again, as far as tornadoes are concerned, brief spin-up tornadoes is a possibility. We will look at that combined rotation threat here in a moment. Some strong wind gusts, a possibility out of this still. But again, none of these are high. None of these are extreme. Okay, so we're still lower end of the spectrum on this, despite confidence increasing somewhat. And again, I think that flash flooding potential, one of those things that we're going to look at in more detail. Let's look ahead here at, in particular, our threat. And we call this the triple threat. We debuted this at 6 o'clock. This is something you can get only on Mississippi Live. No other outlet has this out there. And this is combined all the way through between now and Saturday. So everything you see out here on the plains, this is all what occurs tomorrow. And you can tell here, this is level 1 risk out there versus level 2 risk here. You can see more of the reds, brighter reds starting to show up. That's one of the ways in which you can kind of tell what these systems are capable of. What we don't see a lot of is wind damage or hail potential in either situation here. There's a little more hail with the storms back there toward Monroe, Louisiana. One thing that's interesting about this, and this is the combined threat every minute between now and Saturday at 6 a.m. there. A lot of this obviously occurring on Friday. Some hail on a few of those storms out there. More rotation for some of those storms in the Delta. And we will look at this with our exclusive strike model on our future cast coming up here in a couple minutes. But we do show some rotation of some significance up here farther north and west on this projection. But that is a stark difference between other projections. We're starting to get a few more of those higher resolution projections in, and they've seen a little bit more of a shift south. We're going to look at that comparison here in just a moment once we kind of go through all the rest of our looks here at the strike model. Again, the newest version of that in a moment. So pickup temperature, we're 57 on your Thursday. Lots of fog out there. Dense fog advisories in effect. Drop-off temperature 72. And again, showers increasing late in the day, and appreciate IMPC for sponsoring our school bus forecast here on Mississippi Live Weather. So clouds sticking around, the fog sticking around. You could argue drizzle. It's going to add up on the windshield from time to time. All that's sticking around as we go throughout the overnight hours, with only the lightest of light showing up here on that model. So 53, that low temperature in New Albany, 54 in Houston, 56 in Starkville. Temperatures will probably actually go up from where they're at now for early tomorrow morning, which is not something that happens often, but that does happen. We're starting to try to pack more moisture in, and that is what we are doing. So looking at Futurecast on your Thursday, again, keeping it mostly dry, a few isolated showers. These are all very light on our scale. No thunderstorms related to this. But again, we'll have, again, some isolated showers 2, 3, 4 o'clock as we head toward the afternoon time period. And then possibly 5 to 6, maybe a few more slightly heavier out into Arkansas. That is a difference between what we showed you at 5 and 6 o'clock with the latest data. These are less impressive. A downward trend. What we want to see, will it continue? That remains the question. Okay, so looking at the risk area, again, you could see mainly for locations to the west, to the northwest, that level 1 out of 5. If I can do 1 out of 5, get my hand fully open there. Come down to the number of reports. That's not to say just one report, but that those reports tend to be more limited in this setup. High temperatures for your Thursday. We're mid-70s out there, south and west. Really mid-70s most locations, which puts us just right at within a degree or so of our 30-year, not our 30-year, our record that goes back to 2006. The normal's a 30-year normal. That's where the 30-year comes in my brain. Ole Miss football forecast there, out there in Glendale, Arizona. Kickoff temperature 56, dry, but again, one of those things, it's actually cooler than it will be here in North Mississippi out there in the desert for tomorrow. Good luck to Ole Miss at that against Miami. Hopefully it works out for all those Ole Miss fans out there. I know I have some state fan friends that want nothing more than to not go well. But either way, good luck to whoever you want to win. And again, appreciate Carl Hogan Toyota for sponsoring us here on Mississippi Live Weather. Obviously, it'd be nice to see a Mississippi team win, but I understand the other side feels differently about that. So showers remaining, again, relatively light. I need to change something here. Stick with me for a moment. I'm going to dig into this model, and I'm going to force it to some newer data. So give me just a second here, because I think that's hard-coded for 18Z. So give me a moment as we kind of force this to behave a little bit differently. And we'll go ahead and re-rack this one here, because as new data comes in, that allows us to kind of adjust what we're looking at. So this, again, looking toward your Thursday evening. Again, not overly impressive. A little bit more in the orange is showing up 10 to 11 o'clock by this time tomorrow. So don't at all be shocked if you do have some rumbles out there in the overnight hours leading into early morning on your Friday. But nothing out here screams severe weather until we get past midnight, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And even then, this is probably hail. These would probably be what we call elevated thunderstorms, meaning they form above the boundary layer, meaning they're not going to be tornado-producing thunderstorms. But could there be a couple little hailstones with these? Not impossible to get that from time to time. But this is the key. Do you see the positioning of these storms to start the day? I'm going to go and circle it here for a moment, because this is it. We talked at 5 and 6 o'clock about building a wall, right? The showers can sometimes build a wall because as moisture is trying to come up from the Gulf of Mexico here, right? It's trying to come up this direction and it's feeding into those storms. If you get a big complex of storms down here, sometimes that cuts off the moisture flow and that limits our severe weather chance. So this is a positive sign in our HRRR model that maybe, just maybe, we end up with a more limited coverage of storms. Low temperatures aren't going to be particularly low. These are above where high temperatures should be for this time of year. Lower, middle 60s, humid, probably not, I mean, we'll have some rain showers around, so kind of a damp and wet beginning to your Friday with very limited chance for some overnight thunderstorms that could be a little heavier leading into the day. Okay, I left this one intentionally the last model run. As we kind of bring it in here, I want you to compare. This is where the midday model run had this, right? Now watch the positioning as I kick it to the latest. Ready? That's not a little shift. Okay, so I can't draw on there the distance, but as I come back here and we go back to the previous model run for a moment, this should be back to 18Z. Watch where those thunderstorms are. Tuscaloosa on the most recent. I mean, that is not a small difference. That's 2 to 3 counties worth, right? So that is a good sign. This is the old run, which has it more in our area. And now this is the new one. So at least in our HRRR model, that is a huge improvement in positioning. Now, models do have a tendency to flip-flop back and forth. So I wouldn't at all be shocked to see it move closer in, but that is a good sign. We're going to look at some other projections related to this here in just a moment. So as we kind of advance things from that point in time forward, we'll get an idea of kind of how that works. Have we built the wall? On Futurecast here, it shows this wall of rainfall south, stunting the return of moisture. And so that's why you'll see on the wide shot here, the majority south. Now this changed over models, right? So this changed from our HRRR, and again, this is when we start running our HRRR model data, that goes to strike. So I'm going to actually go back in there and edit this again for you. If you'll stick with me for a moment as I kind of drag this forward to get all the way into the rest of the day. And we'll have both types of model data on at the same time. So I'm going to get rid of the cloud cover, delete. My consultants would probably kill me for this when I was back at the TV station because it's going to be kind of messy, but I think it's worthwhile for us to see both sets at the same time. Okay, so I have 2 sets of model data. You can tell which is which. Actually, I am going to, I think I can shade this batch there and slope it down. Is that going to work? In the direction. That might not work for that there. That didn't work. Well, okay. This is why the consultant would hate me. So the one that's updating more often is going to be our strike model. It has a lot more data in there. Notice how much farther north it is with these thunderstorms versus the HRRR model there. Even the latest run on the strike model is a lot farther north. So I would definitely say it's our more aggressive projection. But you can still see there will be thunderstorms that still form north of this line here. So we're going to go all the way through this and then we're going to go back. So I'm going to delete out that strike model for just a moment so we can only concentrate on the one that frankly is showing better things for us. And that's going to be our HRRR model here. So you can see we've built a wall, and notice how farther north we get nothing. This is the absolute best case scenario. But will it happen? That's where we're going to bring in our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor, here for a second, as we're going to look at this. And he's pulled it up, and then I'm going to probably pull it full screen there. Describe what you have on the monitor there, what that site is, and then I'll kind of do some analysis back and forth. I'll let you kind of run it back and forth on that. So what are we looking at?
Definitely optimistic. That's what we're looking at as we head into this extended forecast. And basically what you have at the top of the screen is every single different model that is currently in place. And if we drag it across, you'll see the positioning at 18Z, which is around noontime on our Friday. And the positioning...
Is that 16 models? I was just counting that there. Is that 16 different models?
Well, if you counted, then I trust your word on that. But it looks around that, yeah.
Okay, so here's, it's close-ish. I'm going to pop it full screen with me. I'm going to pop your microphone back on. We'll talk back and forth about this because the microphone naturally goes off when we're like this. Okay, so let's go back and forth here. Let's start with ECMWF. When we talk about the European model, and this is kind of the important part here, the comparison on what we're looking at. This model is the midday run. Now, this is 12Z Euro, actually, so this is still from this morning. So in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, I don't know if the mouse shows up on there, Gabe, but if you can mouse over where it says INIT, right, well, I can't pull that up, but right above where he's making that go back and forth there, that's the time. 12Z would be this morning, 18Z would be midday, and 0Z would be this evening. That matters because it allows us to understand we're looking at multiple models at once, but we're looking at multiple time frames as well. Okay, so let's kind of work our way from left to right on here. As you can see, Euro cutting us off at down south. GDPS, as we kind of work our way to GDPS there, and I'm going to let you run this, Gabe, because you're logged in on that, if you would. Mouse over GDPS.
I'm sorry. What was that?
I know. Mouse over GDPS. We're going to mouse over these and work our way from left to right on there. So this one, closer to our area, and that one was a 0Z run, looking at that. So that would be this evening. So again, that's a vote the opposite direction. This is also 0Z. Is that correct, Gabe?
Yes. GFS and GDPS were both 0Z. Okay,
so both of those are still closer to our strike model there. So far, we're 2 keeping it up here, 1 not. We'll see if I can, which one wins, who gets over one hand first. Her, which we looked at a minute ago there, farther south, one of our high resolution models. And sometimes it gets aggressive on how far it pushes things south. That could easily wobble back north. The ARW, this one, what was the initialization time? Is this a 0Z in it? Yeah, it is.
Yes.
So this is today, and you can see solidly south. This one also tends to be a little more aggressive on how far south it goes, but we have 3 farther south, 2 not at this moment. And again, we're not just going to average these. Each of these kind of work in different ways. The HRW, kind of another one of these experimental sort of models, mainly south, but closer. The NSSL HRW, again, 2 different versions with a different core mathematics at the beginning of part of that there. Again, mainly south. Icon, not one I trust a whole lot, put a lot of effort into. As you can see, lower resolution, but closer over top of us. And it does take into account more upper levels than some of these others that are what we call convection allowing models. These dynamical models, Icon, Euro, GFS, I mean, they're all dynamical models, but they tend to take in, they have more upper level levels in some cases there that extrapolate over a larger domain. Okay, GSL, still kind of over us, somewhat cut off. Keep on going the left there, closer to us. So now we're 4, and we're about 3 or 4 over here. Keep going. NAM, which is
one note on
a
this,
mesoscale model.
Matt, real quick,
yeah, go ahead.
One note on this, it's a 12Z run, so this is from earlier on today.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out, because that was an important thing, because it's reasonable to assume where we had everything north earlier that this one could shift southward once we get the 0Z, the late evening run. I'm glad you drew me back to that. Thank you, Gabe. Keep me honest. Okay, NAM, this is this evening's run, right?
This is 0Z, yes.
Okay, and you see still closer to our area. So you can see we're fairly divided. NAM 3K, which is a higher resolution domain, it takes what you saw there, and this is still very much over top of us at 18Z. RAP, similar position. RDPS, similar position. RRFS, and then UK Met, so a little farther south and east, and then UK Met a little farther south and east. Okay, so why does all of that matter? That all matters because when we come back in here into the Room to Room Weather Center for a moment, and we look at where the models are kind of cut off here, this is kind of, I would say, the scenario that, looking at this, is the best case scenario, but maybe a little too aggressive because most of those projections have the line up closer here, maybe closer to Columbus at noon, but that's still a shift to the south and east versus where we had it at 5 and 6 o'clock. So all of that kind of opening the door for a greater likelihood that perhaps the strongest this is south. So another way in which we can kind of analyze that, we can show that, is I'm going to look for, we'll call the HRRR, I'm going to look for Cape, and do 0Z. Okay, give me a moment here. And we'll kind of put this forward here. So this is kind of the deal. We have some fuel tomorrow, mainly west, right? That's, by the way, a lot more fuel than the same projection showed last night for tomorrow. So keep that in mind. In Friday, the fuel, again, decent early, flares up a bit more by midday, but you see how there's this kind of cutoff here. And this is the interesting thing. And we're going to look wider in a second. There's a couple hours here where this doesn't move, right? Watch this line pretty close to where the Natchez Trace goes. This is 3 p.m. I want to find the end of where this is when it starts to finally move. It doesn't really move a whole lot by 4 p.m. Right there. So you have a boundary that's kind of come in, a trough, something that's kind of holding it south. And between 1 and 5 p.m., this boundary does not move. That's an indication, though, even though this model is solidly south of us, that there still remains a possibility that we still get it as far north as the Natchez Trace Parkway for a more significant chance for storms. Now, clearly, if you go south, fuel is a lot more significant. The only reason you see these kind of holes there, that's where the fuel is being eaten up by thunderstorms. But you can also see that there's just a struggle to get that most unstable air farther north. Let's go a little wider on that to kind of illustrate that. So our front came through today, right? And it shoved all the moisture down there into the Gulf. Flares up and tries to come up as we go into your Thursday. But the most impressive air ends up being a little more pinched off. And as that moisture return hits, watch those storms down there in South Mississippi and see how there's kind of a hole in that. That works to build the wall on this projection at least and keep the most unstable air to our south. So still best case scenario. And the takeaway being, we do still expect to have severe weather for locations nearby. But is it overhead? And are we talking tornadoes? That remains the biggest question. So I'm going to go back and show our severe threats. And let's talk these over before we show the 7-day forecast here. And I'll get Gabe's opinion again here in just a moment. So as far as confidence is concerned, earlier today, we went from low confidence to medium confidence. I cannot increase confidence on tornadoes, thankfully. I still think brief spin-up tornadoes are possible. I also think a shift back northward is possible. But clearly what I'm showing you is kind of best case scenario 2 days out or so on how this is playing out with it trying to cut off at the coast. That absolutely completely flip-flop tomorrow morning. But at least we're seeing something positive. As you saw, we're kind of split decision on our projections, but more have shifted south. So knock on wood here, things are looking better that way. Still limited hail threat, not much there. Honestly, not impressed by the wind threat on this at all. I think we'll have very gusty winds tomorrow, 20, 30 miles per hour, well ahead of storms. And it'll probably be fairly breezy on Friday as well. But I don't think we're talking 70 mile per hour winds. I think we're only talking a few 60 mile per hour winds. So medium confidence on that there. And again, a flash flooding risk to go along with that. You need to make sure that you have our meteorologist, Maggie McCauley, on your list tomorrow morning from 6:30 a.m., 7:30 a.m. She'll have updates on that updated risk area. We'll talk about that risk area in more detail here in just a moment. But she will also have an updated look on the projections and where they're placing this line, whether they're still getting cut off south. Updates again from her every morning, 6:30, 7:30 a.m. here on Mississippi Live Weather. To kind of bring it back in here to the mobile room-to-room weather center here, let's go ahead and go back here and show that 7-day, before we go 7-day forecast, let's go 7-day forecast and then we come back. So here's that 7-day forecast. Again, we're 70% on that storm coverage Friday. I think that's pretty good on the percentage there. Peak time frame, I'll say late morning at earliest, And just because of the positioning and where we're cut off, I'm including kind of the late morning time frame on there. We think maybe 11 a.m. before. I'll throw a 10 in, but that's really pushing it. And probably not talking about a tornado threat unless something dramatically changes at that point in time. But extending into the evening, maybe not as deep into the overnight hours, an improvement there. And then drier behind this, cooler for Saturday. We're going 46 Sunday, and much, much cooler weather as we go into next week. So things obviously storming the next couple of days. Let's go back to that. If you give me a moment to find it here, the severe risk area, because we've talked off and on, okay, about upgrades, right? What is the next expectation when we start talking about the number of reports? Are we looking at an upgrade to severe risk area? Based on what I'm looking at now, this will probably not be upgraded tomorrow morning. In saying that, there are some locations back out toward Monroe, Louisiana is one spot that just kind of comes to mind where we do have a number of different projections that are fairly impressive on a couple isolated storms trying to produce tornadoes. I also need to come back here and address the Delta because as you saw on that that threat analysis graphic, our triple threat, it did have some rotation tracks out there. We'll look, I think, specifically at that in a little more detail here in a couple minutes. But yeah, I would say it's possible eventually to get an upgrade out there. I just don't have high enough confidence at this moment to do that, especially with the shift southward. And I think the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma, the ones that put this out, I don't feel very confident that they're going to go to level 3 risk based on what we're looking at now. Now, by Friday, they could, as that timing and the positioning gets nailed down a little bit better. I'm going to bring Gabe in here for a moment. And you've been kind of monitoring some things in the chat behind the scenes there as well. Any general questions, things that we haven't touched on?
Well, people were just acknowledging the foggy conditions, others recognizing the fact that things are looking better, and they're very happy with where things sit as well. But it's just still kind of awaiting that threat and hoping that this trend continues into the next couple of hours. That's one of the things that I was kind of looking at behind the scenes. And you're talking about potential upgrade, if there would be an upgrade. One of the things that I'm noticing is that level 2 threat kind of cuts off there right along Hattiesburg, and they're in the Baton Rouge area. I wouldn't be surprised if they take that slight risk all the way down to the coast just to accommodate for that unstable air mass. But then that enhanced risk, if it were to be in place, I think that, especially with the trending of it moving further south, I think we could be talking meridian south if there were to be anything. And that could go all the way west into Monroe, like you were talking about with some of those brighter helicity tracks as this works its way on through.
You know, and I think that when they look at this, they look for, you know, an area where it's kind of absolute they feel very strongly about. I don't feel super strong about this. It wouldn't, I mean, again, not my forecast. They're independent forecasters that make that decision there. I feel more confident about the Monroe end, or I did before. Less confident on the Meridian end, but I do see, again, where that's the case. But again, it's just kind of a model shift. So I think the thing you did nail right. I think they do take that down probably all the way to the coast at the level 2 risk down there, kind of based on what we're looking at. We'll see if they trim the northwest side of this as well. They might end up trimming that just a little bit, but again, waiting for model consensus on that there. Anything else people are noticing?
As of right now, I of course need to go look back over there. James was letting us know that he has a loop of the Tupelo fog, so very noticeable. If people are driving tonight, drive a little bit slower because it's going to be one of the many hazards that we're tracking over the next couple of days.
You know, that's something to check out with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers, a partner of us here on Mississippi Live Weather. Another thing, again, to mention before we go back and we look at a few other things here for a moment. The weather call is something that you need. You need it because it is an alert that will call you, Mississippi Live Weather Call, if you're in the danger zone for severe weather and tornadoes. It's a hands-off thing. You don't have to make sure alerts are turned on. As long as your phone is on, it will call you. And, you know, I don't know about you, but like mine goes in the personal mode and the do not disturb mode. And look, Duolingo's telling me I have to get in or I'll lose my 400 some day streak. You know, there's always something popping up on here. It's easy to ignore all that, but a phone call, much harder to ignore. So make sure, of course, to have a weather call to kind of keep you ahead of everything. Before we go, I'm going to bring it back in here into our room-to-room weather center, and I want to look at the helicity tracks, and that's another way to say those rotation tracks. And I want to see specifically, this is, I think, a little too far north based on the latest consensus, STRIKE. Ooh, yes. I don't know if this is going to work, which is never a time we should try it live on TV, but we're going to try it anyway live on TV because it's not TV. It's just a stream. Okay, so with that in mind, I wonder if it has all the last runs on here.
Matt, while
there
you're
we go.
pulling that
Okay.
up behind the scenes, just
Yeah.
people were asking about more time frame. Brody was asking, am I going to be able to sleep Friday night? I think on
Yes.
my end, I would say confidently yes, and I was just going to make sure with you as well. And then Pat was asking, Friday 12 to 2, Tupelo, is there going to be bad weather? I would say that falls under that highest time frame where we
Possibly.
could see some, yes.
Yeah, I would say possibly. Again, on this graphic here, we're looking at newer data on our strike model in particular. One thing that you'll kind of see, it just kind of gives us an idea on positioning. I think the newest is on top there. Let me double check with the newest. That should be, hold on. Let's make sure that that is the correct color table. No, we're gonna have to tweak this. Hold on. This is designed for midday, so we're gonna take this. I don't know if we have 0Z in yet, but we'll force it to go 0Z and 18Z, which is midday. This is why we don't do this live on air. And 6Z. No, actually, that needs to be 12Z. And these are different model runs on where it came in. And then this is 6Z. That's the only one missing in my list. Okay. So you can see on this projection, pretty close on its positioning of where it's kind of breaking everything out there. But again, farther north than some other projections. I will say it does. I was talking to a friend of ours down at Panhandle Weather down there in Florida. We have some of the same tools and we share information back and forth as part of our cooperation there. He mentioned that almost every severe event they've had at the coast, the strike model has been just a hint farther north. And so there is a little trend farther north on this. So I would say positioning where we had it at 5 and 6 o'clock, I'd say is probably a little bit closer to where we want to kind of keep it. They're pretty close to the Golden Triangle back toward Kosciuszko and Jackson, kind of more of a target zone on the strike model from what we're looking at there. I would say that's kind of my 2 cents worth on that for the moment. It is worth what you paid for it, right? And then let's look at UH, updraft helicity. And we're going to look at 0ZHRRR. And again, this would be that newest model run that came in that was all south. So just kind of see where it's showing those rotation tracks. Early Friday, nothing of real significance. And then late Friday, all of it primarily down to the south. Not just south, way south. So if we then hop over and we check out that hold on, gotta make sure I get the right one of these. Boy, I have that hail wind in multiple places here. There we are. Okay. There we are, storm rotation. So that's what I'm looking at on this. Okay. So now this one, let's make sure this is on the most recent model, latest it is. So this is the one that had quite a bit of rotation out here in the Delta, which is in gross contrast to the last projection I showed you. So they have gone opposite directions on their agreement. So I guess they disagree. But I do think that when you show some bright tracks like this, we need to kind of address what we're looking at and see the likelihood of this actually becoming what it is. So I'm going to delete off that for a second so we can analyze the actual storms. I see absolutely why it's doing it. It's got pretty deep, lots of deep purples and everything on a broken line of storms there. 4:35 o'clock that becomes a big old bow echo of damaging winds there, Tupelo toward Eupora. So, yeah, that's the reason it's picking out those big rotation tracks, is this is, I would say, if the HRRR, which I just showed you all south, is best case scenario, I would say the strike model is worst case scenario on where it's positioned, because it's farther west, as we talked about, and that's a pretty impressive line. So as I put that rotation back on there, it has a couple of storms in that line. And I do think the timing's not bad. And I do think one thing it does well is we've been looking there into northern Louisiana, and it still definitely says that could be a fertile point for storms to move out here. Cleveland, Clarksdale, Greenville, Greenwood, back out in the Delta. I know we have a lot of newer viewers out there. We cover you as far as severe weather is concerned, and so if this ends up happening, we will clearly be talking about it. But I would say more than anything, this does not look like individual tornado-producing thunderstorms. This is rotation in a line. And this tends to be over-exaggerated. If you get a line of storms that has areas of rotation, the storm rotation here on this projection, and really any of them, tends to over-exaggerate the rotation some. So I would say this is definitely more enhanced wind than what we were showing you at 5 and 6 o'clock. That remains to be seen whether or not this ends up kind of panning out. But I would say timing still remains intact there. I would say for most of us, we're not dealing with severe weather or at least significant severe weather prior to noontime. And for most of us, it's out of here by 8 p.m., if not a lot sooner than that. Hopefully that helps. Courtney, I'm not looking at a lot of different questions here, but I do see Courtney there saying, do you think schools will be canceled? No. Do I think schools should be canceled? No. Now, do I think some might end up letting out early? That is always a possibility. It's not something administrators want to do, but we will see. We have some contacts with local administrators. We do talk and try to consult them on this sort of stuff. We don't tell them go, no go. We just give them weather information so they can make the best decision possible. Certainly, they are watching it closely, and if necessary, something will happen. But I just want to put your mind at ease. I'm very rarely in a school that I would not feel confident with my kids sitting in if a tornado was coming toward it. We have some great schools around here, so many reinforced domes and storm shelters in these schools, so we are blessed in comparison to most parts of the nation. So it's a little early to be it's not early to be thinking about canceling school, but I would say at this instant, not impossible, but I would say not canceled. I would say maybe early dismissal. And again, we're way too early for that at this point here to be thinking about that. Is this an up all night storm situation? No. Not up all night tomorrow night, and not up all night on Friday night either. Because as you can see, even here, this is as aggressive on late timing as any projection I have. As you can see here, by midnight, it's mainly out of here. And this batch of storms that's trailing behind, while they might have some spin in them, they're not going to have enough fuel because the first batch, one way or another, will cut it off. And again, as we talked about, we've built that wall that trying to cut off the moisture, and that could be something that even cuts off the first batch to a certain extent there. Good question there. Not an up all night storm situation. What causes super dense fog? If you get stagnant air and a lot of moisture in place, you get fog. You know, it's just you have humid air in place, you have very little wind. As we calm down at night, the air tends to sink, cold air sinks, it pools near the surface. That then, as it cools, increases the humidity percentage there, because even if there's a little gap between the temperature and dew point, as you cool it, that gap gets smaller. Once the temperature hits the dew point, you get fog that forms. So you get that super thick fog there. How can I check weather call to make sure it's still active? I know I have it, but I feel like it didn't alert me in the last storm. Let's say this. We have not had a whole lot of storms that it would alert you with. Weather call is one of those things. I'll pop up here for a second. Weather call is one of those things that you can very easily go an entire season and not get alerts about. So it's reasonable. It's still working. But you can go to our website, msliveweather.com/weather call, or you can actually, in the Mississippi Live Weather app, you can click on the weather call link. It'll take you to the weather call page there. And I do believe, I'll double check it here while we're having this discussion to make sure I'm correct. I think there's a click through where you can get to this page and put in your information. So give me a moment. So yeah, there's a link right in the app there to weather call. So you don't necessarily have to use the QR code. You can click that. And it does click me through to their web page, right? Okay. So when it clicks me through their web page, you'll click on where it says Weather Call Next Gen at the top. And I think, well, I thought that would work. Now, you might actually have to go. Let me check one more thing on the home page, make sure it doesn't take me the right spot there. Weather Call. Yeah, it doesn't look like. So you're going to have to probably go to weathercallservices.com, or if you go on the web version of this, it should direct you to the right spot there. But weathercallservices.com, and you can log in and you can check that. And appreciate folks for doing that. I should mention, we haven't talked at this at all, that we do have a list of storm shelters in the Mississippi Live Weather app as well. You click on storm shelters, it'll show you the storm shelters closest to you. And one thing that we do have in here is we have the ability to plot the storm shelters in our storm tracks as well. It's not something we do until, we get closer. But anyway, so hopefully that answers that question there. Clear from storms on Friday by late evening. Looks like everyone sort of gets it. Okay, just kind of looking back through here. If you have any other questions, let me know here as I'm looking here real quick. Bet Matt can play basketball. Nope, can't. Gabe Maynard can play basketball. He just can't move because of his bum body parts. I popped you back up there to give you your bust-up basketball moment here while I'm looking through questions.
I still have it in me, and I tell Annalise that my toxic trait is I don't think I can lose a 1v1. So anyone who wants to challenge me out there in North Mississippi.
No. I need Gabe Maynard all the way through severe weather season. We get the summer, and Gabe wants to one-on-one somebody and blow out a knee. That's on him. But not until severe weather season's over.
Listen, I may blow out a knee,
or at least
but I'm also
not until
blow them
baseball
out.
season's over.
Yeah, that's true. No, hey, I may blow out a knee, but I will also blow out the opponent in a 1v1. I can guarantee that. So, yeah, summer can't get here soon enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I think folks would be happy to skip over storm season. And
exactly.
I don't think I would hate that a ton myself either. I'd like another year to get everything ready to go. But we're ready to go. Everything's locked and loaded here as we need to do it. So again, to kind of add, to try to answer some of the more recent questions that just came in here in a second, I'm going to come back over here to analysis mode. We'll bring it back here into the room-to-room weather center, and we will, it looks like the logo forgot to show up, so I'm going to hit it again. Nope, I might have to hit that remote computer there. Well, let's go to the other one then. There we go. Who knows? Remember how I said everything works? It mostly works. We'll get it perfect eventually. So here's our severe weather risk. And again, talking timing here, that was I set an alarm right before the show to make sure I did something. And then sure enough, I was like, I'll be done by then. No, I'm not. Okay, we'll wrap it up here in a minute. Here's our severe risk area. Most of the western area here, I would say out Grenada, Greenville, Clarksdale, Hernando, up toward Memphis, Corinth, Boonville. You're done by probably 5 p.m., if not way sooner. Locations between Grenada and, say, Tuscaloosa, it might take until 8 to 9, maybe even 10 o'clock before we're all the way done on the east side there, and it could be as early as around noontime. Projections have definitely emphasized locations farther south, a trend that might continue, but we'll certainly see here. And Gabe Maynard, I did do Ole Miss. I'm going to bring him back in here. We did Ole Miss a little bit ago. For a state fan, you're awful Ole Miss on this, aren't you?
Well, I got to keep my wife happy. But I guess I missed it doing stuff behind the scenes.
Well, I mean, you are working a job. I'll show Ole Miss again here. Where is it at? There we are. I put it in the middle of the forecast. That's probably why you missed it.
Yeah,
so
who knows?
You know what? I'll let you handle Ole Miss.
Oh, wow, I'm honored.
And then from there, we'll kind of probably wrap things on up. And by the way, if you want to get more than just blabbing, before we go there, I want to remind you that our meteorologist, Maggie McCauley, will be on tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m. with all the updates you could imagine. Okay, let's go ahead here and let's bring in Gabe Maynard to wrap up Ole Miss. Well, I assume that. My little clicker thing here is not working.
I tried to change the background. I don't think it's changing over either. I think we've reached the limit.
Okay, well, I'm going to manually put you up here, so give me just a second.
Okay.
Cam 2 shots. Let's do Gabe, zoom.
You can get the background to change too. That would be, there we go. Matt, you're on top of it. Should trust you for everything, right? Technology, weather, you got it all. All right, speaking of having it all, we have the weather side of things. Let's go ahead and track out that sports forecast. Our Ole Miss Rebels taking on Miami, and let's hope it's not hurricane season in Glendale, Arizona. 56 degrees by that first play, 51 by halftime, and 48 towards that final snap. Now, someone noted in the forecast the other day, it's like, it's an indoor stadium. Why do we need to know the forecast? There's a lot of people traveling and a lot of folks going to be driving through that rainfall if they are driving all the way to Glendale. But if you fly, you'll probably fly over those storm tops. But nonetheless, be safe on that commute. But once you reach Arizona, I think we're going to be in for a good forecast. Now, Rebels just got to get it done on the field. And yes, I am that state fan that's just cheering for the state of Mississippi. Because my wife's a Rebel and I'm going to cheer her on. But also, it's just cool to have Mississippi represented in the big stage like this. So we'll see how things come to plan, and then state will take their spot next year. That's how it'll work, Matt. That's just how the cookie will crumble. But yes, we are going to be keeping eyes on this forecast. Also have basketball tomorrow night, going to be up there in Biggersville to see the Alcorn County
You're
tournament.
absolutely right. Gabe will be in Biggersville tomorrow night. I'll be back here in the studio, kind of monitoring, obviously, the weather, and we'll be focusing our game of the week. You mentioned Biggersville, and we're going to be doing band. Yeah, I don't know that we're going to have pep bands there, so it'll probably end up being student section on that one, and cheer squad of the week.
Perfect, and we'll get that poll. We're going to do a poll like football, right, and get that up tomorrow morning?
Yeah, we need to get that up tomorrow morning.
Perfect.
It's like we have actual weather stuff on top of the other things that we're doing.
It all lines
What's that
up
about?
on
That's
the same
kind of
day.
first.
We don't get one and then the other. It's all just right there together. So, gotta love it.
Absolutely. Let me look here through the comments real quick, see if there's something else that we've kind of missed there. Appreciate everybody for your support.
Yes.
Some folks here talking about, watching. Do we think spin up at 11 in Columbus in the evening? No. In the morning, still fairly unlikely at that point. It'll take a little while. Someone says you can give your weather updates in a wheelchair. How many times have you been on crutches since we've known each other?
I think, okay,
3?
I think it's just 2. So, which the fact that it's been 2 is kind of wild because we've known each other 3-4 years now.
Yeah. I mean, that's and both those were concentrating about the first 2. That's where I'd like to keep them.
Annalise has kept me more
Wanda was asking
more
difference between Weather Call and Weather Call Next Gen. Same system for the most part. Next Gen calls you back. It'll call you back if you're under a tornado warning and it's confirmed as a tornado. It'll call you back if a storm increases to the point where it's producing destructive winds in excess of 70 miles per hour. So it gives you those extra phone calls and calls you for high-end flash flood emergencies like what they had out in Texas. So that's the main difference as far as that's concerned. Appreciate you, Deborah and Lindsay said, basically blessed to have us around here, and we appreciate that. Glad it doesn't look bad, waiting for that. Now, I'll be honest, things look better. I don't want to make it sound like things don't look bad because they still look pretty rough. They just look a little bit better, and that could be snatched away from us tomorrow. So,
and Maggie's
just being completely honest there.
Like, that's more reason for people
Maggie
to
will
tune
have
in
all
tomorrow
that.
morning. Yeah, so, 24 hours, like I said this last night, the next 24 hours are going to dictate a lot on Friday's forecast.
Yeah, Lupta was asking about the weather tomorrow morning in Birmingham. In good shape there. Most of the region in good shape. The only issues we're going to have back out to the west, out there toward the plains. Let's see what else we have here. Made it through the worst storm. We made some stuff. Hail State, but go Rebels. Mary, I think that's exactly where Gabe falls on this one. But my friend Sam would have words for
Sam,
you.
yeah, he is.
He's a little bit of a
diehard.
diehard. Yeah, he gave you a hard time. Heisman run incoming, very, very much a possibility there. Yeah, and looks like that's pretty much asked. New Albany was asking. I would say, again, as we kind of wrap things up, the last thing I'll show before we kind of wrap things up here is that overall risk area with the expectations that we've talked about here, that we are going to probably have, again, some spots, an adjustment on this area tonight. It's possible we could see this clipped a little bit on the northwest side. I think they probably leave it. It definitely expands southward. I do not at this point expect them to upgrade this to the next level up. Our next broadcast, though, will solve all the questions related to that. That will be at 6:30 a.m. Our meteorologist Maggie McCauley with updates then, 6:37, 7:30 a.m. here in the Room to Room Weather Center. Thank you so much. Very active session in the comments tonight on Facebook and on YouTube, and we're just so thankful. So I'm going to type right in there. Thank you so much. Assuming I can spell much. But didn't spell thank. Anyway, for Gabe Maynor, I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Loppon. We will see you tomorrow. Keep it here for the latest.
March 24th, 2023 was a normal Friday. You know, we knew the weather was not good, but we needed to take shelter, and we didn't have shelter. My husband and almost 2-year-old daughter, Ethan and Riley, they did lose their lives in the storm. We're still recovering from it. We'll always be recovering from it. Matt Loppon cares about the community. He's not just there to collect a paycheck. I feel like Matt Loppon has proven himself trustworthy.